Okay, moving to our ampicomplexan parasites, these are sporozoans. They don't have locomotor organelles in some of their stages, and they alternate between sexual and asexual phases and between different animal hosts. Um, Most are transmitted by arthropod vectors, food, water, or other means. And we're going to look at Plasmodium, Toxoplasma, and Cryptosporidium. The Plasmodium is what causes malaria. It's an obligate intracellular sporozoan. There are 5 species, and the primary vector is the female Anopheles mosquito. And you have 300 to 500 million new cases each year and about 2 million deaths a year. And you can see it's going to be in our tropical regions where it's prevalent. The life cycle, there are 5 stages. There's an asexual phase where the organisms enter the capillary with the saliva of a feeding mosquito. Then the second phase is the exoerythrocytic phase, where they invade cells of the liver and undergo a division and release a lot of offspring. The third phase is the erythrocytic phase, where they enter circulation and get into our red blood cells. And then they make more offspring that burst out, and they go to the gametocyte phase, where some of the red blood cells go into the sexual cycle and give rise to male and female gametocytes. And those can infect another mosquito when it feeds on the blood. Then there's the last stage or phase, which is the sexual phase. And it's pretty complex, and ultimately you have this infectious pathogen. The symptoms include chills, fever, sweating, anemia, and organ enlargement, and they usually occur at 48 to 72 intervals as the red blood cells rupture, and that's going to depend on the species. It's diagnosed by looking for the agent in red blood cells, in blood smears, and of course the symptoms of the recurring chills, fever, and sweating. It is showing increased drug resistance, and therapy is going to be your quinine drugs. To control it, of course, you got to control the mosquitoes, and then there's human prophylaxis that can be used. And there's not a vaccine because it's very difficult to come up with. Now the next one is the Toxoplasma gondii, and this is an intracellular anticomplexan parasite. It lives naturally in cats because they have these oocysts in their GI tract, and we get it by ingesting raw meats or substances contaminated by cat feces. Now this is personal for me because my son has ocular toxoplasmosis, and he acquired this either from cats or, as the doctors explained it to him, eating wild game or cleaning wild game, or it's airborne. So most cases of it go unnoticed, but it can cause severe problems in the brain and heart. The last one we're going to look at is the Cryptosporidium, and it's an intestinal pathogen, and it infects a lot of mammals and birds and reptiles, and it causes an intestinal disease that's called cryptosporidiosis. And there's a question about whether we find it in domestic water sources, because in the 1990s they had to filter the water in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, because they had 370,000 cases of it because of the contaminated water. When you ingest the oocytes, they will produce an ineffective form that penetrates the intestinal cells and cause gastroenteritis, headaches, sweating, vomiting, abdominal cramps, and diarrhea. And there's no effective treatment. So a person can acquire toxoplasmosis from any of these.